The team of archaeologists, led by Dr. Elise Carter, had been digging through the forgotten ruins beneath the Earth's surface for months, uncovering what they believed was nothing more than an ancient human settlement. But as they dug deeper, they stumbled upon something far more extraordinary: an enormous metallic vault, so massive it could easily swallow a city block. It was buried deep beneath layers of rock, untouched by time or the ravages of nature. Dr. Carter and her team could hardly believe their eyes. This discovery was beyond anything they had ever anticipated, even in their wildest dreams. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with dust, and the air felt unnaturally still, as if the vault had been sealed for eons. The walls were covered in intricate symbols, ones that seemed strangely familiar, as though they had been derived from ancient human language, yet different in subtle ways. Their technology was far beyond anything Dr. Carter had ever seen, and her curiosity was both a blessing and a curse. She knew this was a pivotal moment in human history, but she had no idea how far-reaching the consequences would be. The team worked tirelessly to decipher the cryptic symbols on the walls, trying to unlock the secrets within. Days passed without progress, until finally, one evening, Dr. Carter and her colleague, Dr. Alan Reyes, stumbled upon an access panel, an ancient glowing interface embedded into the vault's wall. The symbols on the panel matched those they had uncovered in their earlier research, suggesting that this was the key to opening the vault. It was a gamble, but they had little choice. With trembling hands, Dr. Carter inserted the ancient device into the panel, activating it. A low hum echoed through the chamber as the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. A series of massive doors slid open with an eerie hiss, revealing what appeared to be a stasis chamber. Inside, they could make out the outlines of colossal figures lying motionless in the dark. The vault had not been merely a storage site, it was a tomb for giants. The first Titan, Kor, lay at the center of the chamber, encased in a glowing, translucent stasis field. He was immense, easily towering over any human. His armor, gleaming with an alien metallic sheen, was both ancient and advanced, worn from countless battles, but still impervious to the passage of time. His face, though frozen in a fierce expression, revealed traces of humanity, a testament to the DNA that had been altered and perfected over countless generations. As the team stood in awe, a voice, deep and resonant, echoed within their minds. The sound was like thunder, a vibration that reverberated in their very bones. "Who dares to awaken the Titans?" the voice boomed. It was not just Kor's voice, it was a collective one, as if the chamber itself was alive with the consciousness of the warriors inside. Dr. Carter's heart raced. She could feel a sudden shift in the air, a weight that seemed to press down on her. The vault was no longer just an artifact of the past, it was alive, and something ancient and powerful was stirring. The team instinctively stepped back, realizing that they had unlocked far more than they had ever intended. The Titans, humanity's forgotten protectors, had been waiting, dormant, for this very moment. Before they could react, Kor's eyes opened. The light that flashed from them was not merely biological, it was something more, something ancient. As his massive form began to rise, the chamber's walls began to hum, and the ground beneath their feet began to quake once more. The awakening had begun, and with it, the fate of humanity would be forever altered. Kor's eyes snapped open, glowing with an intense, unnatural light. For a moment, the vast chamber fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the soft hum of ancient machinery reactivating. The scientists stood frozen, their breaths shallow and quick, unsure whether to flee or stand their ground. Kor's enormous form slowly stirred, the chains of ancient stasis technology unlocking with a sound like grinding metal. He rose with terrifying grace, his colossal figure dwarfing the human-sized scientists in the chamber. Dr. Carter's voice trembled as she stepped forward, her instincts screaming to turn and run, but her curiosity won out. "Kor, can you understand me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The Titan's gaze fixed on her, and in that instant, it felt as though the weight of centuries passed through him. His expression was unreadable, but there was an undeniable recognition in his eyes. He knew what had awakened him, and he knew what he was. "I remember," Kor's voice thundered in their minds. It was a deep, rumbling sound that reverberated through the entire vault. "I am Kor, protector of humanity, but the world I knew is gone." The realization hit the scientists hard. Kor was no mere artifact of the past. He was a living being, and an ancient one at that. His mind, though clouded by centuries of dormancy, was sharp, his senses primed to defend the species he had been engineered to protect. But there was no time to consider the full implications of his awakening. As the last echoes of his words faded, a new sound entered the chamber, one of distant, powerful engines. Outside, the skies darkened. Earth's peaceful skies were torn apart by the arrival of a fleet of alien ships, each one massive and foreboding. They came without warning, descending in a formation that covered the sky like an impenetrable storm. The Khazar, a ruthless alien empire known for conquering and destroying advanced civilizations, had detected the activation of the vault. The time of humanity's silence had come to an end. The time for invasion had begun. Kor's massive head turned toward the horizon, his gaze focusing on the ships above. His muscles, honed by centuries of stasis and war, rippled beneath his armor. Without a word, he moved. The team barely had time to react before Kor's powerful stride took him out of the vault and into the open, where he raised his head toward the sky. The Khazar ships loomed overhead, unleashing their first wave of laser fire. It was a rain of destruction, striking the Earth's surface with terrifying force. Buildings crumbled, and the ground shook violently under the onslaught. Kor did not hesitate. With one massive swing, he extended his arm, and his ancient armor, reactivated by his presence, came to life, forming an impenetrable shield around him. He charged forward, each step shaking the ground as his massive feet slammed into the Earth's surface. The Khazar ships, surprised by the appearance of the ancient warrior, pivoted to retaliate. But Kor was unstoppable. With a single leap, he soared into the air, landing atop one of the Khazar's flagship vessels. His sheer weight cracked the hull, sending sparks flying as the ship buckled under his strength. Kor's fists, like meteors, collided with the vessel, smashing through its defenses. Inside, Khazar warriors scrambled to defend themselves, but they were no match for the Titan's immense power. As Kor fought with a fury born of ancient war, the rest of the Khazar fleet adjusted their strategy. Ships began to fire specialized plasma weapons, designed to pierce even the toughest of human-made materials. But Kor's armor absorbed the blasts, and with every strike, he tore through their ranks, toppling ships and sending debris crashing down to Earth. The team of scientists watched in stunned silence as Kor, a single Titan, stood against an alien invasion force. But even as he fought valiantly, it was clear that the Khazar were no mere invaders. They were powerful, highly organized, and determined to conquer Earth. Dr. Carter's heart pounded in her chest. This battle was only the beginning. The Titans were back, but were they enough to save humanity from the imminent storm? The Khazar were relentless. As Kor demolished ship after ship with his overwhelming strength, the alien fleet only regrouped and adapted. Soon, they began to deploy more specialized weaponry, designed to neutralize the Titan threat. Massive energy cannons fired blasts that sent shockwaves through the air, forcing Kor to move with uncharacteristic caution. Despite his power, even he was beginning to feel the strain. The Khazar, it seemed, had come prepared for a fight unlike any humanity had ever faced. Dr. Carter and the team watched in horror from the ground as the battle raged above them. Though the Titans were mighty, they were still vastly outnumbered, and the alien invaders were more organized than any earthly military force could have anticipated. The scientists had hoped Kor's awakening would be the salvation of humanity, but the sheer scale of the Khazar onslaught made them question everything. Kor, for all his might, was still one warrior against an entire fleet. How can one man fight this many? Dr. Reyes muttered, his voice heavy with disbelief as he gazed at the destruction unfolding. Dr. Carter's mind raced. They had no way to communicate with the Titan directly, yet she felt a strange connection to him, something primal, as though she were witnessing the last flicker of humanity's golden age. Still, this was not the time for contemplation. The battle needed strategy, and quickly. "We need to help him," Dr. Carter said, her voice steely despite the overwhelming fear. "We have to figure out a way to level the playing field." The team quickly realized that the Titan's power was not limitless. Kor was formidable, but his technology had been dormant for centuries, and the Khazar's advanced weaponry was slowly chipping away at him. It was clear that Earth's military could do little against the alien threat. Traditional weapons seemed ineffective. The defense forces on the ground were being overwhelmed, with only a handful of fighters able to mount any kind of resistance. It wasn't enough. Back in the heart of the battle, Kor stood atop the smoking wreckage of an alien battleship, but more ships were descending from the sky. He could feel his energy reserves depleting, the ancient systems within his body groaning as the force of each strike took its toll. Despite his advanced armor and immense regenerative abilities, Kor was not invulnerable. The Khazar, sensing his vulnerability, launched a new offensive, rapid-fire plasma missiles that bombarded him from all directions. Kor roared in defiance, but the missiles struck true, forcing him to one knee. The ground cracked beneath him as he fought to rise, the weight of centuries and the pressure of the battle threatening to overwhelm him. This was no longer just a test of strength, it was a test of endurance, of survival. As he struggled, a new threat emerged from the Khazar fleet. The colossal warship, larger than any he had encountered, descended toward Earth, unleashing a barrage of destructive energy. Back at the research facility, Dr. Carter had an epiphany. "We need to activate the hidden defenses," she muttered, realizing what had been left behind by the ancient human empire. There had to be more to the vault than just the Titans. Perhaps there was technology in the vault that could turn the tide of the war. They needed to find it, and fast. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the situation grew increasingly dire. Kor's power was waning, and without reinforcements, the Khazar would soon claim victory. It was clear now that humanity's future hinged not just on the strength of these ancient warriors, but on the ability to harness the full potential of their forgotten technology. Desperation settled in Dr. Carter's chest. "We have to wake the others," she said, looking at her team with a newfound resolve. "We can't win this alone." Kor's roar echoed through the skies as he rose once more, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. The awakening of the Titans was just the beginning, but even as Kor prepared for his next assault, he knew the true battle was only beginning. The Khazar had underestimated humanity's strength, and now they would learn the cost of that mistake. The days following the battle had left the world in turmoil. The Khazar's invasion force had been pushed back temporarily, but the damage they'd inflicted was undeniable. Cities lay in ruins, and Earth's military forces were nearly depleted. The rest of the world's nations had united, but there was a lingering fear that humanity was not prepared for what lay ahead. The Khazar were relentless, and this was only the beginning. In the midst of this devastation, Kor stood as humanity's last hope. But despite his incredible strength, the ancient Titan was not without his struggles. He was a living relic, a warrior born of another time, and the world around him had changed in ways that confused and overwhelmed him. His connection to humanity, once strong, was now fractured by time, memory, and a deep sense of loss. As Kor gazed upon the destruction he had fought to stop, he found himself questioning his purpose. The Khazar were alien, fierce, and seemingly unstoppable, but the humans, those he had once sworn to protect, were fragile. The war, as much as it depended on his might, needed more than brute force. It needed unity, and he had to understand what that meant in this new world. The Titan's mind was a battlefield of conflicting thoughts, yet there was one thing he could rely on: the fierce instinct to protect. He had been created for this purpose, and it was a purpose he would never abandon. But he was not alone. The humans had their own strengths, and he would soon come to realize that it was not just his power that would decide the outcome of the war. It was their combined resolve. Dr. Carter had come to the same conclusion, though she was far from understanding how to bridge the vast gap between human ingenuity and the Titan's ancient power. But she had seen something in Kor, a glimpse of humanity's own unyielding spirit, mirrored in the Titan's own struggles. She had come to view him not as a weapon, but as something more, a partner in the fight for survival. "We need to work together," Dr. Carter said one day as she approached Kor, who stood atop a hill, gazing at the horizon. His enormous form cast a long shadow across the landscape. "The Khazar are stronger than we realized, but you've shown us that strength alone won't win this. You were meant to protect us, not just with your power, but with your knowledge, your experience." Kor's eyes, though still distant and clouded by time, focused on her. There was an intensity in them, a flicker of recognition, but also something else, a longing, perhaps, for the world he had once known. "Humans, I see your fire," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "You have not forgotten how to fight. You're not weak, but you must learn from the past, from the strength of your ancestors." Dr. Carter nodded, understanding that Kor's memories were fractured, but there was wisdom in his words. And it was this wisdom they would need to harness. The Titans' knowledge, their technology, and their bond with humanity were their greatest weapons. But before that could happen, the Titans needed to fully awaken, to remember who they were and what they were capable of. In the coming days, Kor and the other Titans who had awoken began to form a bond with humanity, one forged in the crucible of war. The bond wasn't immediate or without conflict. The Titans struggled to adapt to this new world, just as humanity struggled to accept the return of their ancient guardians. But together, they began to forge a new path, one where human ingenuity and Titan power could complement each other. As they trained together, the Titans grew more connected to the humans who were once their charges. Kor, once uncertain of his place in this new age, began to understand. The Titans were more than just warriors. They were symbols of what humanity could become, of the heights they could reach if they embraced their past and built a future together. They were not alone in this fight. The Khazar were coming, but now humanity had something more than just brute force to fight back with. They had hope, and that, Kor realized, was the true strength of humanity. The days after Kor's awakening were a blur of activity. Humanity had begun to organize in a way it never had before, uniting under the banner of resistance against the Khazar. The scientists, military forces, and even ordinary civilians were coming together in ways that had once seemed impossible. But despite the newfound unity, the Khazar's fleet loomed large, their relentless assault on Earth showing no signs of slowing. The Titans, still learning to adapt to this new world, were struggling to adjust to their roles as humanity's protectors. But they were learning quickly, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Kor stood atop a mountain peak, gazing at the vast expanse of Earth below. The world had changed since his last battle. The landscape, though still beautiful, was scared by the ongoing conflict. Cities lay in ruins, and the remnants of battlefields stretched as far as the eye could see. But humanity was not broken. The spirit of resistance burned brightly in every corner of the world, and the Titans were beginning to feel that same fire within themselves. "How much longer do we have?" Dr. Carter's voice crackled through Kor's comlink, her tone urgent. "Not long," Kor replied, his voice calm but filled with a quiet intensity. "The Khazar will be here within hours. I sense their fleet approaching." Despite their fearsome power, the Titans were outnumbered. The Khazar's fleet had grown since their initial assault, and they now had warships capable of obliterating entire continents in a single strike. Their tactics were precise, and they had adapted to Kor's style of combat, developing weapons designed specifically to counter his abilities. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on Kor's shoulders, but as he gazed across the battlefield, he felt a flicker of hope. His bond with humanity had grown in ways he had never anticipated. The humans had begun to fight alongside the Titans, not just as allies, but as partners. The fusion of their strength and intelligence had created a new force, one capable of taking on the Khazar in ways they had never dreamed possible. In a command center beneath the surface of the Earth, Dr. Carter and her team of engineers were working feverishly to activate the hidden technology buried within the vault. She had finally uncovered the key to unlocking the full potential of the Titan's ancient systems, a series of relics that, when combined, would give humanity a fighting chance. These relics, powered by the same technology that had once fueled the Titan warriors, were capable of altering the battlefield in ways the Khazar could not predict. "We're close," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady despite the tension. "We found the core systems. If we can integrate them with the Titan's energy reserves, we can amplify their power. It's the only way we stand a chance." But even as Dr. Carter's team worked, the Khazar made their move. The skies darkened as their flagship, a monstrous behemoth capable of laying waste to entire cities, descended toward the Earth's surface. The air crackled with energy as the ship's weapons powered up. It was an all-out assault, one meant to break humanity's spirit once and for all. Kor's eyes glowed with a fierce determination. The battle was upon them. He turned and faced the horizon, where the Khazar warship loomed. It was time to make their stand. "We are not just fighting for survival," Kor spoke, his voice ringing out across the battlefield, his words carried by the wind. "We fight for the future, for those who come after us. We fight for humanity's place in the stars." The Titans rallied, their strength bolstered by their bond with humanity. Together, they faced the incoming storm, ready to strike back against the alien invaders with a force the Khazar could not have predicted. The rising tide of humanity's resolve had begun, and it would not be easily quelled. The time had come to show the Khazar that Earth was no longer a vulnerable world waiting to be conquered. It was a world ready to fight back, and with the Titans at their side, humanity would rise, or fall, together. The Khazar flagship loomed above Earth, a massive vessel that seemed to block out the sun. Its dark hull shimmered ominously as it prepared to deploy its full arsenal. Below, the planet's surface trembled as the Khazar's energy cannons powered up. The invasion had reached its peak, and the fate of humanity was hanging in the balance. In the command center deep underground, Dr. Carter and her team were working at a frenzied pace. They had unlocked the final piece of the Titan's hidden technology, the heart of the ancient systems that had powered the warriors' indomitable strength. The relics, now fully integrated into the Titan's energy cores, glowed with an ethereal blue light, their energy humming through the air. But even with the new power at their disposal, there was a sinking feeling that it might not be enough. Dr. Reyes stood beside Dr. Carter, his brow furrowed with concern. "The Titans are stronger now, but the Khazar fleet is still vast. Are we sure they can hold their ground?" "We don't have a choice," Dr. Carter replied, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her. "The Titans are humanity's last hope. If we don't strike back now, we risk losing everything." Above them, the Titans, Kor and his awakened brethren, stood tall, their bodies rippling with newfound power. The relics had enhanced their strength and agility, their technology now operating in perfect harmony with the weapons of old. For the first time since their awakening, the Titans were ready to face the Khazar not as ancient protectors, but as the warriors they had once been, beings of incredible power, born for battle. As Kor looked up at the towering flagship in the sky, the sense of unity among the Titans and the humans around them was palpable. Kor's once fragmented memories were now clearer, and he understood the significance of this moment. This battle would not only decide humanity's fate, it would also restore the honor of the Titans, long lost to time. "We will fight together," Kor declared, his voice rumbling like thunder, as he addressed the other Titans and the human forces gathered below. "The Khazar think they can conquer us, but they do not understand what they face. We are not just warriors of the past. We are the future." With a rallying cry, Kor charged forward, his colossal form moving with surprising speed. The other Titans followed suit, their massive bodies breaking the earth beneath them with each stride. The human forces, armed with new weapons based on the technology they had uncovered, launched their assault as well, providing cover fire and using advanced drones to engage the Khazar ships in the sky. The Khazar flagship responded immediately, unleashing waves of plasma fire in an attempt to obliterate the advancing Titans. But the enhanced armor of the Titans absorbed the blasts with ease, and Kor led the charge into the heart of the Khazar fleet. With each strike, he cleaved through alien soldiers and war machines alike. His fists, crackling with energy, shattered the hulls of Khazar warships with terrifying precision. But the Khazar were relentless. Their warships launched swarms of smaller vessels that surrounded the Titans, trying to outflank them. The battle turned chaotic, with Titans and humans fighting side by side against a nearly endless wave of alien invaders. Kor fought with a fury born of years in stasis and centuries of waiting. The Khazar fleet, for all its power, was slowly beginning to crack under the combined might of the Titans and humanity. With each blow, Kor could feel the Khazar's resolve weakening. He was not alone in this fight, not anymore. As the flagship loomed closer, Kor's gaze fixed on the ship's central core, its weak point. If he could destroy it, the entire fleet would fall apart. He pushed forward, using every ounce of his enhanced strength to tear through the Khazar's defenses. His massive hands grasped the hull of the flagship, pulling himself toward the heart of the enemy vessel. "Hold the line," Kor bellowed to his fellow Titans, his voice carried by the winds of war. "For Earth, for humanity." With a final deafening roar, Kor plunged his fists into the flagship's core, channeling all the power of the ancient relics. The ship's engines exploded in a burst of radiant light, sending shockwaves rippling through the sky. The Khazar flagship was no more. The battle was far from over, but the tide had turned. The Khazar had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and now, with the Titans leading the charge, Earth's warriors were prepared to show the invaders the true strength of a united world. The final assault had begun, and there was no turning back. The destruction of the Khazar flagship sent shockwaves through their entire fleet. The skies above Earth, once darkened by the enemy's massive warships, were now filled with debris, plummeting to the ground in a fiery cascade. Kor stood amidst the wreckage, his massive form surrounded by the disintegrating remains of the Khazar's once mighty flagship. But despite the victory, the battle was far from over. The Khazar, though shaken, were not yet defeated. The remaining alien warships continued to launch waves of smaller vessels, their relentless assault pushing back against the Titans and humanity's forces. Kor's fists clenched as he surveyed the battlefield. The Khazar had proven to be far more adaptable than expected. Despite their losses, their fleet was still formidable, and their forces were regrouping quickly. But Kor was no longer alone in this fight. The Titans, now fully awakened and empowered by the relics, fought with a renewed vigor. The humans, too, were showing incredible resilience, using their new technologies and strategies to keep the Khazar at bay. It was clear that humanity had evolved since the Titans' time, and their determination to protect their world had become their greatest weapon. Kor's gaze shifted to the horizon, where more Khazar warships were emerging from the darkness. But as he turned to face the oncoming storm, a voice echoed through his comlink. "Kor, we've got more intel. Dr. Carter's voice rang out, calm but urgent. The Khazar are preparing for one final push. They're coordinating their remaining forces for an all-out assault on Earth's major cities. We need you to strike before they can launch their final attack. Kor's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. The Khazar were attempting to break humanity's spirit by targeting their heartlands. It was a strategy designed to cripple morale, to show the world that even with the Titans, they were not safe. But Kor would not let that happen. He could feel the energy coursing through his body, the relics now fully integrated into his systems, giving him a power beyond anything he had ever known. It was time to end this, to show the Khazar that they had underestimated humanity and the Titans. "We'll stop them," Kor said, his voice heavy with resolve. "Tell the others to get ready." He turned to the other Titans, their faces hardened with determination. They had all fought valiantly, but now was the time to end this war. The Khazar were no longer fighting just for domination. They were fighting for survival, and Kor knew that their desperation would make them more dangerous than ever. The Titans and humanity had to strike hard and fast before the Khazar could unleash their final offensive. With a thunderous roar, Kor and the Titans launched themselves into the sky, propelling themselves toward the Khazar's remaining fleet. The ground shook beneath them as they moved, and the skies crackled with energy. The remaining Khazar ships, sensing the coming storm, began to fire everything they had in a desperate attempt to stop the Titans. But the Titans were relentless. Kor led the charge, his fists glowing with the power of the relics, smashing through enemy vessels with brutal efficiency. The other Titans followed in his wake, tearing apart the Khazar fleet piece by piece. The humans, meanwhile, launched their final assault, coordinated with surgical precision, taking out key enemy warships and severing the Khazar's communication lines. The alien invaders, caught off guard by the overwhelming force of the combined attack, began to crumble under the pressure. As Kor tore through the heart of the Khazar fleet, he could feel the tide of battle shifting. The Khazar had been formidable opponents, but they were not invincible. Humanity's spirit, combined with the raw power of the Titans, was an unstoppable force. Kor's every strike resonated with the memory of a long-forgotten promise to protect humanity, to safeguard their future. Above Earth, the final clash raged on, and with each passing moment, the Khazar's hold on the planet weakened. The tide was finally turning in humanity's favor, and the cost of the war was becoming clear to the invaders. The Titans had risen, and they would not let Earth fall. The battle had raged for hours, a brutal symphony of destruction and defiance. The once mighty Khazar fleet, broken and scattered, was finally on the verge of collapse. The final remnants of their warships burned as they descended toward Earth's surface, each explosion marking the end of an invader's dream of domination. Kor and the other Titans stood victorious, their massive forms silhouetted against the fiery remains of the alien fleet. The sky, once darkened by war, now began to clear, revealing the first rays of a new dawn. But the cost of victory had been immense. The landscape of Earth was scared, and though the Khazar's forces had been shattered, the Titans knew that the war had taken a toll that could never be undone. Cities lay in ruins, and countless lives had been lost. The survivors, though triumphant, were left to pick up the pieces of a broken world. Humanity had proven itself resilient, but now it had to rebuild, and it was up to the Titans to help guide them. Kor stood among the ruins, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had seen the destruction firsthand, felt the lives lost in the fires of battle. The war was over, but its scars would remain forever. Humanity had fought beside him, not as subjects, but as equals, proving that even in the face of an overwhelming enemy, they were capable of standing tall. The bond between the Titans and humanity had solidified in ways Kor never imagined. "Is it over?" Dr. Carter's voice came through the comlink, tired but relieved. "It is," Kor replied, his voice quiet. "The Khazar are finished. Earth is safe for now." Kor's gaze turned to the horizon, where the first signs of a new era were beginning to take shape. The battle had been won, but the true test of humanity's strength was still ahead. They had been thrust into an age of war and destruction, but now they stood at the precipice of rebuilding their world, stronger, united, and ready for whatever might come next. The other Titans gathered around him, their faces worn but resolute. The energy coursing through their bodies, a gift from the ancient relics, had reached its peak. But now the question remained, what would become of them? Their purpose had always been to protect humanity, but with the Khazar defeated, they were left with no clear direction. Kor turned to the other Titans, his voice filled with conviction. We have fought alongside humanity, but now we must step back and let them lead. Our mission is complete. It is their future, their destiny to shape. Dr. Carter had joined them, standing at Kor's side. She nodded in agreement. Humanity has proven itself. They are not weak. They are capable of standing on their own 2 feet. Kor's heart swelled with pride. The humans had earned their place in the stars, and though the Titans had guided them, it was clear that the future belonged to humanity. They had shown strength, ingenuity, and above all, an unbreakable will to survive. In the face of a threat from beyond the stars, they had not only survived, they had triumphed. But the Titans were not gone. They were no longer the guardians of Earth in the same sense, but they would remain, watching over humanity from the shadows. Kor and his brethren, now fully awakened, understood that their role had changed. They were no longer the weapons of destruction they had once been, but rather the silent keepers of the world, standing ready should the need arise. As the humans began to rebuild, Kor looked toward the future with a sense of hope he had not felt in centuries. The Earth was not merely a world in the void of space, it was a testament to the resilience of its people. And though the Titans would remain as protectors in the background, they knew their greatest legacy was the human spirit that would rise from the ashes. The war was over, the Khazar were defeated, and humanity, guided by the strength of the Titans, had taken its first step into a new era, one where they would no longer be just survivors, but masters of their own fate. The dawn had arrived.